They say genius strikes in an instant, a flash of revelation, an eruption of clarity that seems to descend from the heavens. Picture Archimedes sinking into his bath and suddenly shouting, "Eureka!" as he uncovers the principle that would change science forever. But what most people don't know is that before that moment of triumph, Archimedes had been still, utterly still. His breath slowed to a calm rhythm that mirrored the tranquil sea outside Syracuse. His mind was not racing, it was breathing. For the ancient Greek sages, breath was not just air, it was pneuma, the sacred force that animated thought, spirit, and the very cosmos. To breathe consciously was to align oneself with divine intelligence. Pythagoras taught that rhythm in breath mirrored rhythm in nature. Plato called the breath the bridge between the mortal and the eternal. Even Aristotle hinted that deep respiration cleared the mist of the senses, allowing reason to shine like the midday sun. Today, we rush, gasp, and choke through life. Our minds cluttered, our insights dulled. But what if the clarity we seek, the creativity we chase, lies not in more effort, but in rediscovering the breath that once guided the sages to their Eureka? Long before meditation apps and wellness trends, the ancient Greeks practiced an art of breathing so profound that it shaped the way they thought, moved, and created. In the bustling heart of Athens, among marble columns and open courtyards, young philosophers gathered not just to debate ideas, but to breathe them into being. At the Pythagorean schools of southern Italy, disciples began their day in silence, focusing on the rhythm of inhalation and exhalation before speaking a single word. They believed that breath, when properly aligned, tuned the soul like a lyre, making it capable of harmony with truth itself. The word they used, pneuma, carried meanings far beyond air. It meant spirit, essence, the invisible thread connecting humans with the divine. To the Greeks, to control one's pneuma was to master the flow of energy between the body and the mind. Plato wrote that the breath acted as the vehicle of thought, carrying the impressions of the world to the intellect and returning understanding to the heart. Even the Stoics, centuries later, described virtue as living in accordance with the breath of nature. In the gymnasia, where body and mind were trained together, breathing was seen as both physical discipline and spiritual purification. Before philosophers like Socrates spoke in the agora, they often withdrew to solitude, breathing deeply to still the tempest of the mind. They sought clarity through stillness, not through escape, but through alignment. The sages understood something our age has forgotten, that the breath is not passive. It is a tool, a teacher, a portal to higher reasoning. To breathe like the ancients was to commune with the universe, to inhale wisdom and exhale confusion. It was a living philosophy, one that shaped not only their intellect, but their sense of self. When you read the words of those philosophers today, you can almost feel the cadence of their breath behind each line. Steady, deliberate, alive. Look around the modern world, and you'll see a civilization that has forgotten how to breathe. Our days begin with alarms, screens, and caffeine jolts. Our nights end in restless scrolling and shallow sleep. Somewhere between the noise of traffic and the tension of deadlines, our breath, that quiet companion of life, has become fragmented, rushed, and unconscious. We inhale anxiety, exhale exhaustion, and call it productivity. The ancient Greeks would look at us with pity, wondering how a species so advanced could be so disconnected from its own rhythm of life. Scientific studies confirm what the sages intuited. Most people today breathe too fast, too shallow, and too high in the chest. This triggers the body's stress response, the same one meant for survival, not for emails and meetings. Our nervous systems stay on constant alert, pumping cortisol, clouding the mind, tightening the body. We have traded deep, rhythmic breathing for short gasps of survival. The result? Mental fog, fatigue, irritability, and an inability to focus long enough to think deeply. The very state required for insight, for a modern-day Eureka. In this state, creativity suffocates. Intuition becomes inaudible beneath the static of worry. Our ancestors saw breath as a divine instrument, but we've reduced it to a mere reflex, something that just happens. We live from the neck up, trapped in our heads, disconnected from the pulse of the body that once guided our ancestors to profound understanding. The problem isn't that we lack intelligence, it's that we've lost coherence. Breath is the conductor of our inner orchestra, and when it's out of rhythm, every instrument in our mind and body plays in chaos. The solution, then, is not found in external noise, but in internal silence. It begins where the Greeks began, with one conscious, deliberate breath. To rediscover the breath is to rediscover a forgotten doorway, one that opens inward, toward a mind capable of seeing clearly, calmly, and creatively. The ancient sages didn't simply breathe for health or relaxation. They breathed to think better, to perceive truth beyond logic. They understood what modern science is only now confirming, that breath is the bridge between the body and the mind, the rational and the intuitive, the conscious and the subconscious. When the breath becomes steady, the mind follows. This ancient truth is now measurable. Studies in neuroscience show that slow, intentional breathing directly influences the brain's electrical patterns, synchronizing them into coherent rhythms. It reduces chaotic beta waves associated with stress and overthinking, and amplifies alpha and theta waves, which open the door to relaxed creativity and deep insight. What philosophers once described as illumination or divine inspiration may have been a naturally induced neurological state born of calm, rhythmic breath. Imagine sitting in quiet reflection, your breath long and smooth, the noise of the world dimming until only clarity remains. Thoughts that once collided begin to align. Solutions that eluded you surface effortlessly. This is not imagination, it's biology and spirituality dancing in harmony. Breath acts as the translator between the physical and the abstract, converting emotion into awareness, confusion into understanding. To breathe consciously is to enter the space where science and spirit converge. Every inhalation brings oxygen to the neurons that craft thought. Every exhalation releases tension that clouds judgment. The ancient Greeks knew this balance intuitively. They believed that wisdom came not from accumulating information, but from returning to rhythm. And that rhythm was the breath. When you breathe, as they did, you do more than fill your lungs. You awaken the silent intelligence within you. You reconnect to the harmony that pulses through nature, the same force that guided the philosophers, artists, and inventors of old. The breath becomes your compass, pointing you toward the same stillness that once gave birth to Eureka. Modern science, in its relentless search to decode the mysteries of the mind, has circled back to an ancient truth. The breath shapes consciousness. What the Greek sages intuited through experience, neuroscience now demonstrates through evidence. Our brains, it turns out, are exquisitely sensitive to the rhythm of our breathing. Each inhalation and exhalation sends waves of electrical activity rippling through neural networks, influencing attention, emotion, and creativity. When you take a slow, deliberate breath, something remarkable happens inside you. The diaphragm descends, stimulating the vagus nerve, the great wandering nerve that connects brain to body. This single act activates the parasympathetic nervous system, lowering heart rate, easing tension, and silencing the mind's internal chatter. Oxygen levels stabilize, carbon dioxide balances, and blood flow increases to the prefrontal cortex, the seat of insight and higher reasoning. It's as if each mindful breath polishes the mirror of the mind, allowing you to see ideas with crystalline clarity. Neuroimaging reveals that during controlled breathing, regions associated with self-awareness and intuition, like the insula and anterior cingulate cortex, light up. Meanwhile, stress-related circuits quiet down. The brain, no longer at war with itself, begins to hum in coherence. This state is not passive relaxation, it's active equilibrium, the perfect breeding ground for insight. Ancient philosophers describe this as ataraxia, a serene lucidity born from inner order. But the most fascinating discovery lies in brainwaves. Studies show that when breathing slows to about 6 breaths per minute, alpha and theta waves synchronize across hemispheres. Alpha waves foster relaxed alertness, while theta waves ignite imagination and memory. Together, they form the neurological signature of the Eureka moment. Archimedes' cry, Newton's apple, Da Vinci's visions, all arose from this merging of calm and creativity, when the brain was bathed in rhythmic oxygen and coherent oscillation. So, breathing slowly isn't just a stress relief trick. It's a gateway to genius. Each measured breath is an act of neurosculpting, reshaping the mind toward balance and brilliance. The Greeks called it nous, the higher intellect that perceives truth directly. Modern science calls it coherence. But whether in a lab or an ancient temple, the principle remains unchanged. When breath flows smoothly, thought flows freely. Long before neuroscience mapped the brain, the ancients spoke of the breath as sacred, the invisible bridge between the mortal and the divine. In the Greek world, this essence was called Pneuma, the animating spirit of the cosmos. To inhale was to draw in divine intelligence. To exhale was to release the residue of ignorance. The same word, pneuma, meant both air and soul. The philosophers believed that through breath, humans could commune with the gods, not through ritual sacrifice or external worship, but through the silent act of inner harmony. This idea was not unique to Greece. Across the ancient world, from India's prana to China's qi, the same truth echoed. Breath is life force, the subtle energy that connects all beings. While the Greeks contemplated pneuma as the rational breath of the universe, the order that governs the stars, the Eastern sages experienced it as the vital current flowing through the body. 2 languages, 1 essence. Both traditions saw the breath as a cosmic conversation, where the microcosm of the human mirrored the macrocosm of creation. When Plato wrote of the world's soul, the anima mundi, he was describing a living cosmos that breathed as we do. Every gust of wind, every heartbeat, every thought was part of this universal respiration. To breathe consciously, then, was to synchronize with that rhythm, to align one's inner universe with the outer one. The act of breathing became a spiritual exercise, a return to the source. In Stoic philosophy, The divine logos, the rational order, was said to permeate everything through Pneuma. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." But hidden in that simplicity lies a truth. Change follows rhythm, and rhythm follows breath. To master one's breath was to master the art of living. To meet chaos with calm, to meet fate with freedom. Today, when science speaks of energy and vibration, it echoes the same language of spirit cloaked in physics. The mystic and the neuroscientist are now allies, gazing at the same mystery from different angles. The Greeks knew it through intuition. We verify it through machines. Yet both point to one eternal insight, that the breath is not merely a biological function, but a spiritual dialogue, a sacred pulse that unites mind, body, and cosmos. When you breathe consciously, you're not just feeding your lungs. You're partaking in an ancient ritual of existence. You are remembering your place in the grand, breathing universe. Now that you understand the philosophy, it's time to experience what the ancients practiced. The breath of the sages. This isn't mystical fluff. It's a precise, deliberate rhythm designed to awaken clarity and insight. The Greeks didn't sit cross-legged on mountain peaks. They stood tall, rooted like statues carved from marble, breathing in rhythm with the cosmos. You can do the same wherever you are, standing, sitting, or lying down, as long as you breathe with awareness. Begin by finding stillness. Straighten your spine so energy can flow freely from base to crown. Let your shoulders drop, your jaw unclench, your face soften. Place one hand on your chest and the other on your abdomen. The ancient teachers believe that wisdom lives in the diaphragm, the center of power and balance. When you breathe, the lower hand should rise first, not the upper. This means your breath is deep, natural, and true. Now close your eyes. Inhale gently through the nose for a count of 4. Feel the cool air descend into the belly. Hold for 2 counts, not as tension, but as stillness, a sacred pause. Then exhale through the mouth for a count of 6, letting go completely. When the breath leaves you, imagine confusion leaving with it. Repeat this rhythm. In for 4, hold for 2, out for 6, and allow your body to settle into the ancient tempo. After several rounds, you may feel the mind quieting, thoughts slowing, awareness sharpening. The sages believed this was the moment when Pneuma aligned, when the inner and outer worlds began to harmonize. If the mind wanders, bring it back to the sound of your breath, to the sensation of life entering and leaving. Do not force. Simply allow. Breath is not domination. It is partnership. As you continue, imagine a faint light behind your forehead, growing brighter with each inhale. The Greeks associated this center with the seat of nous, divine intellect. You are breathing wisdom into that light, awakening the part of you that knows without analysis. On the exhale, imagine the light expanding gently through the body, filling you with calm precision. Each cycle clears a layer of noise, revealing the quiet brilliance beneath. Practice for 5 to 10 minutes. When you open your eyes, don't rush. Sit for a moment in the silence you've created. Feel the mind's edges soften. You've just performed the same ritual that philosophers used before they contemplated truth. The same breath that may have preceded Archimedes' Eureka. Now that you've learned the method, let us move into the inner experience, the moment where breath transforms from action into revelation. This is where the ancient sages entered what they called Eureka consciousness, a state of heightened lucidity where solutions, insights, and understanding emerge without effort. You are no longer doing the breath. The breath is doing you. Find a quiet space where you won't be disturbed. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and begin the rhythm you practiced. Inhale for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 6. With each breath, release the need to control anything. Let go of the body's restlessness, the mind's chatter, the constant search for answers. Instead, feel the breath as an ocean tide, flowing in, flowing out, endless, ancient, alive. You are floating now, not in air, but in awareness itself. As you settle deeper, notice a subtle stillness emerging between breaths, a moment that feels like time itself pauses. This is the doorway. The Greeks called this the interval of inspiration, the sacred gap where the divine whispers through silence. It is here, in the still point between inhale and exhale, that the mind opens like a temple gate. Don't strain to hear. Simply listen. Thoughts may appear, but they no longer pull you. Instead, they drift like clouds, shaped by the wind of your own breathing. Within minutes, a feeling of gentle expansion begins to fill you. Not excitement, but clarity. You may feel warmth in your chest, a tingling in your hands, or light behind your eyes. The ancients described this as the touch of Pneuma, the awakening of the inner flame. It's your consciousness tuning itself to the rhythm of creation. Now, bring to mind a question, something you've struggled to understand, a problem unsolved. Don't think about it. Just place it lightly in the space of awareness, like a leaf upon water. Continue breathing in rhythm. As your nervous system calms and brain waves harmonize, the subconscious begins to work with elegant precision. Often the insight arrives not as a word, but as a feeling, a subtle knowing that suddenly feels obvious. This is your Eureka moment, not thunderous or dramatic, but quiet and inevitable, born of breath and silence. When it comes, don't chase it. Let it unfold like dawn. Stay with the breath. Stay with the stillness. And when you finally open your eyes, carry that clarity with you. Because what you've touched in that moment is the same consciousness that guided philosophers, poets, and inventors across time. You have entered the stream of the sages. Something changes after you've touched that stillness. The world doesn't look different. You do. The edges of life soften. The noise that once drowned your thoughts now feels distant, almost irrelevant. You begin to notice patterns in conversations, in nature, even in your own emotions that you once overlooked. This is the transformation from chaos to clarity, the ancient journey the Greeks spoke of when they described the soul returning to its natural order. Practitioners who rediscover the breath often describe a subtle rebirth. The body feels lighter, as if the weight of years has slipped away. The mind becomes spacious, thoughts no longer tangled in anxiety. You find yourself responding to life rather than reacting to it. The Greeks would have called this sophrosin, the state of inner harmony, where reason and emotion dance in balance. It is not suppression, but serenity born of self-awareness. Modern individuals experience this transformation too, though they may not use ancient words to describe it. A scientist reports solving equations effortlessly after a breathing session. A painter finds colors blending in ways they never did before. A leader notices calm replacing tension during conflict. These are not miracles. They are the natural consequences of restoring rhythm. Breath reorganizes the inner world, and from that order, insight flows like water finding its course. Psychologists note that deliberate breathing rewires emotional patterns, training the nervous system to remain grounded under stress. But beyond biology lies mystery. Something deeper begins to awaken, an intuition that life is not random, that every inhale and exhale connects you to a vast, intelligent design. You feel guided, as if your choices align themselves without force. Problems that once seemed impossible dissolve into perspective. The Greeks believed this was the gift of logos, the divine intelligence that speaks through silence. In this transformed state, you realize the breath was never just a tool. It was a teacher. It trains patience, humility, and clarity. You begin to sense that wisdom doesn't rush. It arrives in rhythm. You walk slower, speak with more intention, and see meaning where chaos once ruled. The breath becomes a companion in every decision, reminding you that clarity isn't found through struggle, but through stillness. And when you return to daily life, to work, relationships, and the endless noise of modernity, you carry within you a hidden sanctuary. Each conscious breath becomes a quiet act of rebellion against distraction, a declaration of freedom from chaos. You are, in essence, breathing as the sages breathed, clear, balanced, alive. When practiced consistently, this ancient art of breathing begins to sculpt not only the mind but the entire human experience. The results are tangible, measurable, and yet profoundly mysterious. Science and spirituality both nod in agreement. The body follows the rhythm of the breath, and the mind follows the stillness it creates. Over weeks of practice, your physiology shifts, your perception sharpens, and your creativity begins to feel less like a rare spark and more like a steady flame. The most immediate change is in focus. Your thoughts, once scattered and impulsive, begin to align like stars into constellations of clarity. Tasks that used to overwhelm you now feel fluid, almost effortless. This is not a placebo effect. It's coherence. As your breathing regulates, heart rate variability improves, blood pressure stabilizes, and the brain receives a steady flow of oxygen. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning and planning, becomes more active, while the amygdala, the seat of fear and reactivity, calms down. In this state, you think more clearly, decide more wisely, and act with quiet precision. Emotionally, a serenity takes root that no external chaos can shake. The Greeks believed that emotional mastery was not suppression but proportion, knowing how much of each feeling to express and when. Conscious breathing cultivates this balance. Anger softens into discernment, sadness opens into empathy, and anxiety transforms into alert awareness. The result is euthymia, a stable, joyful calmness the Stoics considered the foundation of a virtuous life. Creatively, the transformation is even more striking. You begin to access what the ancients called divine inspiration, not as myth, but as mechanism. The balanced breath synchronizes the brain's hemispheres, allowing intuition and logic to collaborate instead of compete. Writers, artists, engineers, and entrepreneurs alike describe this as flow state. But to the Greeks, it was simply breathing in harmony with the cosmos. You start to notice ideas arising spontaneously, elegant, complete, effortless. You realize that genius is not a gift given to a few, but a state available to anyone who learns to breathe consciously. On a spiritual level, the boundaries between self and world start to blur. Each inhale feels like communion, each exhale an offering. You feel connected, not abstractly, but viscerally, to something vast and intelligent. This is the same awareness that guided the sages as their pursuit of truth, beauty, and virtue. It's the sense that your life, like your breath, is part of a greater rhythm, the universe breathing through you. Over time, you notice that life itself begins to mirror your breathing, calm in the face of storms, purposeful amid chaos, alive in every moment. You no longer chase clarity, you breathe it. You no longer seek peace, you embody it. The breath becomes your compass, your sanctuary, your teacher. And in that quiet realization, you touch the timeless wisdom of the Greek sages, that enlightenment isn't a destination, but a rhythm. One inhalation, one exhalation, one moment of awareness at a time. The true power of the breath of the sages is not in the few minutes you practice each day, but in how it transforms the fabric of your daily life. Once you felt its effects, that quiet pulse of order within chaos, you begin to weave breathing into everything you do. It ceases to be an exercise and becomes a way of being, a living philosophy in motion. Start small. The next time you wake up, resist the urge to check your phone. Instead, take 3 deep, deliberate breaths before rising. Inhale for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 6. Let your day begin in rhythm rather than reaction. You'll notice the difference immediately. The mind wakes softly. The body feels alert but unhurried. The Greeks believed the first breath of morning set the tone for the entire day. An idea now confirmed by neuroscience, which shows that early morning breathing stabilizes mood and primes focus. Throughout your day, use the breath as an anchor. Before an important meeting, close your eyes for a moment and take one conscious breath. Before you speak in conflict, inhale deeply and feel the air expand your chest. The pause between inhale and exhale becomes a space of awareness, the moment where instinct turns into wisdom. You'll notice that when your breathing remains steady, your words carry more weight, your presence more peace. Artists and thinkers of antiquity would practice rhythmic breathing before creating, believing it aligned them with divine proportion. The same balance found in geometry, music, and art. Try this yourself. Before writing, painting, or designing, breathe consciously for 2 minutes. You'll find the creative flow begins without effort. Ideas seem to emerge from stillness, shaped not by force but by harmony. Even in moments of stress, traffic jams, deadlines, emotional friction, the breath remains a sanctuary. The Stoics taught that no one can take your breath from you, and thus no one can take your freedom. When you feel anger rising, exhale longer than you inhale. This single act signals safety to your nervous system, dissolving tension before it manifests as reaction. Slowly, you realize that every challenge is an opportunity to return to rhythm. Integrating the breath doesn't mean retreating from the world. It means engaging with it more fully. You walk differently, grounded, aware, present. You listen differently, hearing not just words, but energy. You think differently, slower, deeper, more deliberate. This is the rhythm of mastery, the same rhythm the philosophers carried into their lives. Over time, the practice becomes invisible, yet unmistakable. Others will notice something about you, not the technique, but the presence. You seem calm when others panic, clear when others cloud. That is the mark of one who breathes like a sage, a person whose inner world moves in harmony with the outer one. When one person breathes consciously, the world subtly changes. What begins as an inner practice soon radiates outward, touching others in ways unseen yet undeniable. The ancient Greeks believed that harmony within the self naturally extended to harmony within the polis, the community. Just as each citizen contributed to the balance of the city, each breath contributes to the balance of life itself. When you calm your own rhythm, you influence the collective rhythm around you. Imagine a society where leaders, artists, and everyday people all breathed with awareness before acting or speaking. Conflicts would slow down. Compassion would rise. Decisions would emerge not from haste, but from coherence. The Greeks called this cosmos, order born from chaos. To breathe, like the sages then, is not a solitary pursuit. It's a return to the natural law of connectedness. Every deep breath you take adds stability to the invisible fabric of human energy. Modern science quietly agrees. Heart-coherent studies reveal that calm, rhythmic breathing emits a measurable electromagnetic field that can synchronize with those nearby. When one person steadies their breath, others unconsciously begin to match that frequency. In a room full of tension, one calm individual becomes the anchor, the tuning fork of peace. This is the physical counterpart of what the Greeks intuited thousands of years ago. That inner order births outer order. Communities grounded in conscious breathing would reflect the same symmetry the ancients sought in art, philosophy, and architecture. The Parthenon was built upon the principle of divine proportion, not just a visual harmony, but a metaphysical one. Breath is that same proportion, expressed through life rather than stone. When individuals breathe in rhythm, society itself begins to resonate with wisdom, compassion, and clarity. In the modern world, where division and noise dominate, this truth feels revolutionary. Yet it's the simplest revolution imaginable. One breath, one moment, one person returning to alignment. The practice that begins in solitude, the quiet inhale, the patient exhale, becomes a communal act of healing. Families communicate more gently. Teams collaborate more fluidly. Strangers treat each other with empathy instead of fear. The breath becomes a form of leadership. True authority, the Greeks said, came not from power, but from presence. The leader who breathes consciously, listens more deeply, perceives more clearly, and acts more wisely. Such a person doesn't dominate. They harmonize. And perhaps that's the final lesson of the sages, that the world does not change by force, but by frequency. When enough individuals breathe with awareness, humanity begins to remember its rhythm, the rhythm of nature, of truth, of peace. Your breath becomes a silent act of service to the collective, a steady pulse that says, without words, all is in order. Across millennia, from the marble courtyards of Greece to the restless cities of today, one truth endures. The breath is the bridge between the seen and the unseen, between confusion and clarity. What Archimedes discovered in a quiet moment of stillness was not an accident of thought. It was the inevitable result of harmony between body, mind, and spirit. The same power that illuminated his Eureka lies within every breath you take. You have now learned what the sages practiced, not as religion, but as rhythm. The breath of the sages is not about escaping life. It's about entering it fully. It is a way of seeing, thinking, and feeling with precision and grace. When you practice daily, even for a few minutes, you begin to experience what the ancients called eudaimonia, the state of flourishing where wisdom and peace coexist. The modern world tells you to chase success. The ancients whisper that success finds those who are still enough to receive it. So here is your invitation, your call to action. Breathe like the sages. Each morning, before the world demands your attention, return to your rhythm. Inhale the clarity of the cosmos. Exhale the weight of distraction. Throughout the day, let your breath remind you of what you are, a fragment of the divine order, a living expression of Pneuma. When problems arise, do not rush to fix them. First, breathe. When ideas fade, do not panic. First, breathe. When life overwhelms, return to the same stillness that gave birth to genius. If every person watching this video committed to breathing consciously for just 10 minutes a day, imagine the shift. Calmer minds, clearer hearts, kinder communities. That is how change begins. Not with revolutions or technologies, but with a single breath remembered. You are not separate from the wisdom of the ancients. It flows through you, waiting for recognition. Each breath is an invitation to return, to yourself, to harmony, to the intelligence that guides all things. So close your eyes now, take one deep, deliberate breath, and feel the lineage of the sages move through you. This is your Eureka. This is your awakening. This is where your new life begins.